In this video I'll show you how to make my Novella Gift Posy. The Novella Posy is basically 3 of my standard Novella roses, part bound with a short length of tied ribbon. It's very simple, it's ideal as a 30-minute craft or maybe an hour if you're a beginner. You can very easily gift wrap these for prize givings or to give as party favours or to celebrate a special occasion. And you could even use them as a small flower girl posy or a small bridesmaid posy. So to start with, you'll need an old book. You'll also need my standard template. You can download this by following the link in the video description, and if you print it out at 100% on A4 paper, it will be exactly the right size. You'll also need some wallpaper paste. The link for mixing this up is in the video description. And you'll need some white PVA glue and some florist tape. You'll also need some thread and some scissors. You'll need some ribbon for binding the roses together and for the trailing ribbon that will tie around the centre. And you will need some kitchen foil, and a dressmaker's pin will be handy towards the end. So to start with, what you need to do is tear 3 strips of tin foil or kitchen foil, and I usually tear these at about 18 to 20 centimetres, but it doesn't matter if it's a little bit bigger than that, you don't have to be too precise. So take your tin foil and fold it in half, and then fold it in half twice more, and then scrunch it at the top and twist. And what you want to do is twist it so it compacts all together into a nice firm stem. These stems are firm and flexible and really ideal for making these roses. So do the same for the other pieces of foil until we have 3 stems to hand. When making these stems, I just find if I roll them between my fingers, they come together quite nicely. The next part is to make the book page petals, and what we need to do for this is we need to take 4 pages from our book and I tear them all together. If you hold the book firmly at the top, you should be able to gently pull all 4 pages out together. Now we need to take 3 lots of 4 book pages. So take your first set of 4 book pages and fold them all in half together, and then take your template and line it up with the wording on the page. Simply cut around your template. It doesn't matter if there's a small gap all around your template and at the bottom. Each cut will give you 8 petals, and we need 21 petals for each rose. So we'll do the same with the other book pages. We will cut 3 lots of 8 petals. This will give us more than enough petals for our rose, but it's always handy to have a few spare, as sometimes the cuts don't have lots of writing on them. So to make the first rose, what I usually do, and if you've seen some of my other videos, you will know this inside out, I lay out the petals in 3 rows of 6 petals with 2 extra petals to the right hand side and all the spares to the left. Now you'll see on this layout quite a few of them don't have very much writing on them, so I'm going to replace these with ones that do. It's particularly important on the first row that both sides have good text on them, but on the outer petals, which will be on the top row, it's okay to have fewer words on the petals. So to start with, we will take one of the petals from our spares pile. What you want to do is roll it in from the right hand side to the centre and roll it around so that we make a point in like a cone shape, and then we want to put a dab of wallpaper paste inside the cone shape and then insert the foil stem. Give it a little twist and hold it firmly against the stem, and then take your thread and wind it around the petal several times, and then I usually wind it down to the bottom of the petal where it's just touching the foil. At this stage I will put a dab of wallpaper paste on each of the petals in front of me. So pick up the first petal on the bottom row and then line it up so the bottom of the petal matches the bottom of the petal on the stem, and then wind your thread around the petal to secure it in place. Pick up the next petal on the bottom row and you want to place it directly opposite the previous petal, and again twist the thread around just to hold it in place. Now the next petal needs to be lined up so that the middle of the new petal is against the edge of the previous petal, and we want to do this for all of the petals that are remaining. Just make sure that you line up the new petal, the middle of the new petal, with the very edge of the previous petal, and then just wind your thread around to secure it in place. If you're well acquainted with this process because you've watched some of my other tutorials, then don't forget you can use the timestamps in the video description to jump to the part of the process that you would like to watch or that you're needing to watch because you're making these roses. And if you haven't yet seen any of my other tutorials, do go and take a look. Once you get to the last petal, attach it in the usual way and just pull the thread around really tightly and wind it round a few extra times and bring it down so that the thread is on the foil. Snip it off and then put a good amount of wallpaper paste all around the thread and the bottom bunchy bit of the rose. And then what you need to do is just tease open the petals with your fingertips. And the rose is quite sturdy at this point. You can pull them around a bit and pull the petals back up. And when you're happy with the placement, put it to one side to dry. So you'll need to make 3 of these roses for this posy, so you can either jump back and watch that process again if you need it, or you can pause the video and just carry on in a few seconds time when I've prepared the 3. I'll not show you the full process on these as well, because it's easy enough for you to go back on the timestamps to watch it again if you need to. So once you're happy with the position of the petals in your roses, put them to one side to dry. Now I usually leave them to dry overnight. This is so the wallpaper paste holds the petals in place really firmly. If you move on to the next stage before letting the flowers dry, the petals can move out of place. So once your petals are dry, trim the stems to about 22 or 23 centimetres. And then take your florist tape, and what you want to do is wind it around the bunchy bit underneath the rose so that it covers all of the thread and all of the bunchy bit, and then just twist the florist tape down the stem all the way to the bottom. And when you get to the bottom of the stem, make sure that all of the stem is covered, and then just fold the top of the florist tape over and then carry on twisting. And what happens is that the florist tape will start going back up the stem, and at about 1 inch from the bottom of the stem I will just trim the florist tape off, put a little bit of PVA glue in place and put to one side. We don't need to double up on the florist tape all the way up the stem because that is going to be covered with the ribbon. So continue this process for the other 2 roses. I will show you that process on all 3 roses because it is quite a quick process. So now we need to arrange all 3 roses together. So you want to line them up so that the petals all sit nicely together. So I pull the stems together so that they are touching at about 6 centimetres from the underside of the rose. And then just take a little bit of florist tape and a little bit of PVA glue just to secure it all in place. So now we want to take our ribbon. So I usually attach the ribbon at about 2 to 3 centimetres from the bottom of the stems. So if you take your ribbon and point it towards the flower heads at a slight angle, and then wrap the ribbon around on itself and straighten it up so that there is a level edge of ribbon at the bottom of the flowers. So what you want to do is tilt the ribbon up towards the flower head and rotate the flower so that the ribbon winds up the stem. When you get to the part where the flowers start to separate, you can snip off the ribbon, and then what I usually do is I would hold it in place with a little bit of glue and a dressmaker's pin. We'll take the dressmaker's pin out later, it's just to hold it in place for now. So what we want to do now is cut a length of ribbon. This can be any length that you like. I'm going to cut about 65 centimetres. And then what we want to do is simply tie it in a knot around the top of the binding. And I usually tie 2 knots and then remove the dressmaker's pin because the ribbon will hold everything in place now. And there you have it. That's pretty much my standard basic Novella posy. I have other gift posies that I'll be putting into tutorials over the next few months, so if you don't want to miss out on those, do hit subscribe. And if you got this far in the video, it would be really lovely if you could just give me a thumbs up. And as always, if you've got any questions at all, just pop them in the comments and I will do my best to get round to answering them.